This is Nina Lockwood. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. Stories and insights that will inspire you to find new sources of happiness in your own life. Hello and welcome to Get Your Happy Back. And today my guest is Anne Saile. Hello, Anne. Nice to have
Oh,
you.
nice to be here.
We had a little technical difficulty before we actually were able to get started, but that makes it for more interesting conversation.
Right. That's right. Good.
So I'm going to let Anne introduce herself, and then we're going to talk about things related to happiness.
Hmm.
Anne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So you asked me a little bit about my what led me to where I am today. And so I uh I think like most people, I've experienced a path that hasn't always been straight. I have an educational background that, was full of fits and starts and went to a few different universities, including Oxford University in London. I went to the Center for Human Rights and Responsibilities to study the healthcare system in the United Kingdom versus the United States. Led me back here to graduate from Russell Sage College, and then I did some work. I participated in a symposium at Harvard on the advent of telemedicine, which when I went to that, it was a very new concept that the way to bridge the digital divide was to provide um, support for people who lived in rural areas and anywhere really in the world to get the best help that they could in healthcare. So I've spent my life actually in healthcare. I've run a hospital. I've done turnarounds of multi-million-dollar companies to take them out of financial distress. I've helped CEOs uh, plan for succession of their own company and have spent a lot of time, I guess, in my whole career figuring out how to help other people get where they want to be and how to define what happy means to them. And that is a lifelong process.
Yes, that's for sure. So, what's your definition of happiness? I know you have a family, you have grandkids, you've had a very rich career, a varied career. What is happiness to you? And is it different from how you would have defined it when you were in your 20s or 30s?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that happiness, I believe this about everyone. I think that happiness depends on the day. And I usually will ask my friends or my kids. Between us, my husband and I have 4 children and 11 grandchildren.
Wow.
So happy for that size family can it looks a little bit different on the scale from day to day. But I think happiness, I like to ask people, how are you today on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being you're over the moon. And, one being you're really not on top of the world. And happiness is, you had asked me a while ago if happiness was an inside job. I do think it is. I think that happiness comes from ourselves. And if we look inside, we will find it. And that comes through looking at our expectations that we have of what happiness is, and to always try and seek it and to constantly be searching for the, you know, over the moon happiness, I guess, might rob us of the present moment. And so we might miss the opportunity that is right in front of us to be happy.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I've heard in a number of spiritual contexts is that we are all born with happiness as an innate, well, let's say factory default, and that it's not so much that things out there in the world, our accomplishments or our acquisitions are going to make us happy, but they can be an outlet for that innate happiness. So it's just a matter of finding the right opening to let whatever this is inside of us, this well-being or this sense of contentment, being okay with things, can come out and express itself. What do you think
Hmm.
of that kind of a definition?
I think that happiness, I think that we have to figure out what our outlet is and the exchange of the currency of time, I guess,
Mhm.
is that can then get us to a happy place is. And for some people, that might be things. It might be a different car that they're driving, or it could be a spiritual practice that they have. Um, but I don't, I personally don't believe that happiness can ever be realized through seeking it from something that is outside of oneself.
Mm.
There's that quote by Abraham Lincoln that if at the end of the day I have but one friend left, it will be the friend deep inside of me.
Ah, that's beautiful. I've never heard
And
that.
yeah, I always kept that on my desk when I was working. So I remember that, and it's because friends come and go. Every friend, friends have seasons, they come and go, or and circumstances change. But at the end of the day, really, we're the ones that need to love ourselves, that need to be happy with how we're doing, to know that we get up every morning and do the very best that we can, and to enjoy every day for what it is. So,
Would you have said that was your definition when you were 25 or 30?
maybe not when I was 25. I wish I had been a little bit more, uh, reflective about things during that time. But who is? I mean, your brain is just getting like engaged and fully developed.
Sure.
Um, Although I thought I was pretty old at 25. But yeah, at 30, I think I started to really start thinking about it more. I've been meditating every day since I was about 30.
Wow.
And that's helped me a great deal. That's been a tool
Mm.
that I've used really literally every day for decades.
And
I
how do
really
you think that's affected your sense of happiness, or what is happiness for you?
It's given me more time to be an observer
Mm.
of the world around me and the world inside of me, and to have time to reflect and to appreciate uh, life. And so that has made me, I always used to say it made me smarter, made me more thoughtful, but it definitely made me come up with better answers
Ah,
for myself to issues that I might have been facing.
wow. So would meditating, or at least taking some time out from our monkey mind, would you
Right.
say that's part of your recipe for happiness?
Yeah,
If
I would say that
such a
that's a
thing?
recipe for happiness. I would. And yeah, and for me, meditating is, there are a million different ways to meditate. But for me, it's not just like sitting and, you know, chilling out and taking a rest. It's really being very intentional about what I want to focus on. And I use a lot of guided imagery for my
Mm-hmm.
meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been very helpful, and I've done that for years. And as I said, and I've done it even in the hardest of times when I've been in very, very intense negotiations with work, with big acquisitions or mergers, and the conversation has gotten tough. I've never hesitated to excuse myself. Um, to take a break. I just, oh, excuse me, I need to just go use the restroom for a minute, and then sit down and just give myself that break. I don't think that we take a break for ourselves to listen
Mhm.
to what our own heads are saying often enough, no matter what the age. Um, and I don't believe we do it as often as we should. I don't do it as often as I should. I have to constantly remind myself, like, I don't have to answer this question right now. The,
Right.
the, the next moment might be holding the next best answer. So give me a minute to think about it.
Boy, that is so powerful and so true. It makes me think about other conversations I've had in this podcast and how the key to everything that I can think of is self-awareness. The more that we're aware of what we're doing, how we're behaving, the kind of effect we're having on other people around us, whether we are being intentional. If we don't have that, how do we can only measure happiness from a very superficial place. Oh yeah, I got my favorite dessert, or I just bought a new car, or my dog just jumped on my lap. But without the self-awareness of where am I disconnected from what's most important to me, seems to
Hmm.
be a really key element in whether we call it happiness or well-being or contentment or fulfillment. They seem to be all interconnected.
Hmm. True. Yeah. Um, and well, it's interesting because I think that, happiness is not a standalone kind of a concept, right?
Yeah,
It's part of being really well-grounded, well-rounded, and a lot of things can be true at the same time. I mean, we can be going through a very, very difficult time in our lives, but can still be happy at the same time. I guess if you define happiness by that whatever it is that's going on inside of you and how you're handling it
yeah,
is is good enough. It's where you want to be. And um, it's not a golden ring to be jumped at and hung on to.
yeah. Boy, there's so many different ways I think that we can be intentional about happiness because otherwise we're just, well, I guess it depends on how deep you want to go, right? Because we can be happy with an ice cream cone but on a certain level, if we're not
Hmm.
asking, am I aligned with the things that are most important to me? How
Right.
are how are we going to feel any sense of satisfaction or well-being or happiness?
Hmm. Right. Yeah. And, I think that it's also important to decide and to be really to be really true to oneself about where you want to spend your time
Yeah.
and what is going to make you feel good. And do you really want to spend
Yeah.
your time with doing that activity or with that person or going to that event or, doing whatever I just think that's important. And so what I've done, I mean, I've really made a very conscious effort for a long time now to spend time only with people who make me feel appreciated and good about myself
Mhm.
and who I really enjoy being around and get a lot of joy from. Because to do otherwise is to sacrifice a piece of yourself because time is so precious that to spend your time unwisely, I think, like that.
Mhm.
Um, some people think, I guess, that well, they're willing to sacrifice, and I think I was at one point in my career willing to sacrifice not peace of mind, but I worked too hard,
Mhm.
and willing to do that because the pot at the end of the at the end of the rainbow was going to be worth it. Well, you know what? But this day, this time, this is the rainbow. We're at it. We're on it, and you have to appreciate it. I feel, and then and not sacrifice it for anything. And so I'm a real list maker, so I'll make lists of the pros and cons of like
Yeah.
going doing something or getting involved in something, or also uh, giving voice to what it is I need in order to do something. I was recently asked to volunteer for something, a pretty big event, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. And then kept getting asked. And so what I did was, well, here's what would make me want to do that. It's this. And I listed the 5 things that were important to me. And to my surprise, they said, yes, all right, fine. That's great. And so kind of that, what's it take to make me want to do that has applied to a lot of things that I've done in my life, which, about jobs. Do you want to how much do you want to be paid? Um, do you want to take that job? Do you want to travel to that place? Do you want to live in this area? Whatever, um, has been a good mantra.
I love that. I actually have something, a sticker on my monitor that says, "What would have to be different for me to want to do it?" So,
Yeah.
in your career, helping the many organizations and leaders in those organizations, looking back at that, would you say that they often did not do what you're saying, that they sacrificed because they were going for the golden ring and were making themselves miserable or burning out in the process?
Mm. I think that there are a lot of people who will sacrifice themselves, not ever really sitting down and contemplating happiness. Are they happy? I mean, if you ask most people that, it takes them a long time to come up with that answer, or they'll say, yeah, I'm happy. Well, what does that mean, really?
Yeah.
And or I know I've joked with friends of mine that, how are you? How are you? Oh, fine. I'm fine. And it's well, like, no, how are you really? Um, because that's a pretty standard answer.
Yeah. I think there's a book by that title. How are you really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's also another book that I'm reading right now called Tell Me Everything.
Oh dear. How long
I
does
want
that take to read? Much less do.
But yeah, I think that people do at certain stages of their life make a very big sacrifice. And the the thing that if I were able to have a conversation with my younger self about the career that I had, because it was very demanding. I mean, I've traveled a lot.
Mm.
I've had periods of my life where I've woken up in hotels and not known if I was in my own bed or if I was in a hotel.
Oh
And
dear.
and I think it comes with that, then it comes a foundation for later on in your life. And of looking at, did I do the right thing?
Mm.
Did I really choose joy? Did I choose happiness over ambition, over feeling like I had no choice but to work this hard to build this career? Or, and that's,
Mm.
I think that is a very, very common thing
Yeah.
that people do. And so looking back, I've talked to a lot of women who have had big careers, and then I think almost to a person, they'll make the comment at some point, gosh, when I look back, and I feel somewhat guilty about what I didn't have, or friends I didn't pay attention to, or children
Mm.
wasn't there. I tried to be there for my children as much as was humanly possible. And one thing that I did was I kept a journal of every day with my kids when they were growing up, and wrote just a 1 or 2 sentence thing about something we did that day, so that years later, and I didn't realize the wisdom of this until like I started talking about it
It's
years later.
brilliant. Yeah.
It was that I did the best I could, that I balanced everything as well as I was able, and that I don't have regrets. That I set a good example. And I if I and I think we're all like that with everything we do in life. When you know better, you do better. Um, so
I think that's a really important thing to remember of having, am I going to have regrets? Am I going to regret this? So many people when they get older or even on their deathbeds say, I
Mhm.
wish I had done this. I wish I had spent more time being out in nature or being with friends or making connections.
Right. Or making friends, keeping friends.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you know, the thing that we never regret are the friends that we make.
Mhm.
I believe, and the friends that we, and I do think that it's a lifelong process to make friends. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, it's so hard to meet new friends when you're older, and because your kids aren't in school or you're not involved in, this, that, or the other thing, or work or whatever." And even younger people, I think, have that issue today because so much is done remotely. It's hard for them to make the connections that are really important and I
Right.
think that feed us. Um, so I still look for every opportunity that I can to make friends and to have intergenerational friendships because they're the most enriching. And also to reach back into the past sometimes to um, those people that you formed early memories with, to see, to kind of touch base with them. I had this odd, I don't know what it was like, almost, I think I've talked to a few people who experienced this during the pandemic that they really started thinking a lot about, who they grew up with or, just old friends and then
Mhm.
reconnected. So I reconnected with many of my high school friends whom I had not seen since the day I graduated.
Oh, wow.
And I volunteered to work on my class reunion to find people whose names I had no recall of having known. So I now, once a month, have lunch with 17 of my friends from high school. And they've led the most interesting lives. And they've one flew a helicopter for Air Force One for a couple of presidents. Others are they've done incredible engineering work um and it's surprising that we it's surprising how even though you're not connected for many years, all of a sudden it all comes back, the friendship. So
That seems to be a really important element of, if we're calling it happiness, whatever we're calling it, that good feeling is having those connections. And there's all sorts of research about how humans are wired for connection, for actual human touch, which nobody's getting enough of in the right kind these days. But that ability to really go deep with someone and realize that it has nothing to do with time, it has nothing to do with location, but it has to do with being able to really see another person and
Mhm.
value them.
Right, right. Oh, I think that's so true, Nina. I think there's a little saying that I have posted up there, uh, in uh, in my house that I read every single day, and it's that listening and being listened to is so close to feeling loved
Oh,
that most
gosh.
people don't know and cannot tell the difference. And that I think people really feel seen when they are listened to and to even have a friendship where just even you get even a few moments of that I can call you and I know I will be heard,
Mm.
that you won't jump to a conclusion about what my
Yeah.
circumstances are, you judge me, you won't feel sorry for me, won't whatever, think it's silly. It's a great gift that we can give each other.
I so agree with you. I think that when we don't have that in our lives, there's something essential missing to really be able to give listening as a gift, really, to be able to not be distracted, not be waiting to give our own opinion, not doing anything other than being fully present. I remember someone describing it being like a rock with ears, just you're there, you're 100% there, and the other person feels it. Whenever I've
Mhm.
done workshops where we've done listening exercises, it's kind of shocking to people how much we don't listen. We look
Mhm.
like we're listening, right? We're staring at the other person, sort of. We're not trying to look at our phone on the side.
Right. This is true. It's true. Um, and yeah, I think that um, it's a fairly rare commodity in some circles to find good listeners. But it's like water in the desert when you
Mm.
find a person
Yeah.
who can do that. So, I always hope that I am that person for someone else, that they can feel heard and listened to. You never know what kind of change that's going to make. And I often find that people when if they call me or they, they're distressed over something, it's if you let them, people know in their heart their own answer. They just need to get it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for you, well, from everything I know about you, you're excellent at it. All the things that you've accomplished in your life, the family that you've nurtured, and your grandchildren, and all of the people in your extended family that everything I know about you is you're always there for them.
Thank you. Well, I try and be. It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to show up, you know.
What have you seen with people in the corporate world, the very senior level people who are struggling to really find some kind of a balance between well-being and being in a high-powered position? What would you say to them about how to take a step back and reconnect with themselves?
Mm. Well, there's that Stephen Covey book, that Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, that
Mhm.
I really subscribe to that theory of sharpen your saw and take time for yourself to recharge your batteries, because then you'll go back with a different way of being, and you'll work. You can cut down, 10 trees in half the time if you have a sharp saw. Um, and so when I was in the corporate world, I would take little retreats for myself. Actually, I'd go, to do just fun out of the, just things that I didn't wasn't exposed to in my daily work. Take a weekend and go somewhere. And I think everyone deserves at least a day retreat where they can go and sort through their stuff. You know, no matter what their job is, they can do that and get their priorities straight. And so I always recommend that. And I do think that there are a lot of people who don't feel like they have that time. They feel like they're in the rush hour of their life. And there are many people who are in the rush hour of their life. And some people create the rush hour of their life for all of their life because that's where they're comfortable in chaos. And is my theory.
Mhm.
That's no degree in that, but I have had a few rush hours myself. And um it's not, it's like really when you reflect on it, is that worth it? Was it really worth being that anxious and that sleep deprived? And
Mhm.
I can remember one time being outside putting on the holiday lights on the bushes outside at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, really, was that necessary?
I guess you thought it was at the time.
Well, I guess I did. I had to get it done. Come on. So, yeah. I can look back at those. I mean, no one's who's perfect here. No one. So,
That's right. That's right. But that point of taking a step back,
yeah,
I love that because you get into that whirlwind of doing, 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 and then you're just on, as you say, you're just on automatic pilot. And your day goes by, your kids do things, you don't see it, you don't see the sunset, you don't hear the birds, you don't hear all the things that enrich our lives.
right. Oh yes. Oh right. I know. It's so true. And I'm as guilty as the next person. I mean, I had a car once that had it was kind of new to me, so it was a quieter car than I had been used to. And it had a nice stereo. This was years ago, and I was driving an hour each way back and forth to work. And so I remember getting, to my destination an hour away from where I lived. I had my radio blasting and all that stuff. And
Did you have a car with a top, convertible top?
well, I do now, but I didn't then.
Oh,
But the
just
back
wondering.
door to my car was open. My back door was open. Like, huh? How did I drive an hour with my back door open and no one even telling me, first of all? Where's the help thy neighbor thing? And and, and then I get there and realize, oh no. Yeah, because I didn't hear it because my radio was too loud. So, and the car was a little too quiet.
At least you got there in one piece.
I did, thankfully. Yeah, I'm a lucky person.
Wow. What else can you share with people about what you've learned about really being, I know we're calling it putting it under the umbrella of happiness, but really feeling like you've got a rich, full life and you're taking advantage of it.
Mm. Well, I really do. I do think it's important to always be grateful
Mm.
for what we have because there's so many, there's so many things that could happen that could take that away from us, and it's really important to be grateful for what we have right now, today, in this moment, and that is a found. I think that's the bedrock for contentment and taking the time to recognize and look around. I mean, at everything, the whatever you're surrounded with, whatever you have, the water you have, to everything.
Mhm.
That helps get the mind. If it my mind has always been more of a positive, can do, it's going to work out slant. But even when at those times in my life when it's not been, I've tried to get myself into well, let's see, here are the things that I'm grateful for that are going my way. They're going right. This is good. You know, thank goodness I have this.
Makes me think of Julie Andrews. These are a few of my favorite things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even the things that you don't know that they should be favorite things, it's like, well, they are I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate and everyone has something to be fortunate
Oh,
or feel fortunate for and grateful for. So I think that that helps. And I also think movement helps,
mhm.
to keep people feeling good about themselves and where they're at. And that it's not always easy to get around and to move, in whatever way you're able. But it is important. We are here to move. We are meant to move. So when people are stuck and want to just sleep all the time or want to, just sit and do nothing, um, and they say that that's happiness. Maybe it is for a moment for them, but in the long run, it won't be. So I think that, movement is a really important part of it.
I would agree with that. I've often found that if I am in a bad mood or cranky about something or other, if I move my body, whether it's stretching or going out, ride my bike or something where I'm moving, my attention is not on my head anymore and all the complaints that I have going on. And then I can feel like, okay, I forget about the things that I was grumpy about. But if
Mhm.
I take a nap, or sometimes a nap is good, but if I
Yeah,
just zone out,
right.
my body feels like it's still holding the crankiness.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. Well, I think naps are good. I think that resting when we're tired is a good thing that we should do. Yeah.
Right. Right.
The the thing about I mentioned the 7 habits of highly effective people, and that was very helpful to me for a long time. And one of the things that I committed myself to was, and this was a long time ago, so I can't repeat them all the habits now, but I do live pretty much by them. So I committed myself to integrate them into my being. The just that way of being, the sharpen the saw, is first seek to understand, then to be understood, because then we look
Mhm.
at things differently. Tackle the big things first, and then the small stuff will fall into place. Don't sweat the small stuff,
Right.
and things like that. So anyway, I decided this January 1st of this one year, I was going to really integrate it into my being, and I was going to listen to the 7 habits on audio until I learned them and until I really felt I had integrated it. So you know how long it took me?
How long did it take you?
Interestingly, you should ask. It took me a year.
Wow.
I wouldn't let myself listen to anything else. And I'm an avid listener of books. 3 books a week. I mean, I'm really busy with, listening. I It took me a full year before I could honestly say to myself, I think I've got it. I not only know it, but I live it, and I've got it now. And then when the book The Eighth Habit came out,
Hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, an eighth habit. What could top
Another one.
another one? I can't do. So I got it. And the eighth habit is to share the information with others. Smart. It's share what you've learned with others.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an important thing, I think, for us all to do in life, to share what we know.
It reminds me of a quote that I've probably said before in these podcasts, but I was reading a book about uh, Vincent van Gogh, and supposedly what he said wrote to his brother when he had first when he himself was just entering the seminary, and he's writing a letter in on cheap paper with a pencil. He's in an attic room, with no heat. And he's describing something, and then he sees something out at the window. And he says, in the middle of this letter, he draws a sketch and he says, "It's so beautiful. I must show you how it looks." And when I read that line, I thought, that is it. That's what we do in our best moments when we connect to people. We share something that's beautiful or inspiring, or it lifts the other person up. And
Mhm.
so it's exactly what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And what a tortured life Vincent van Gogh lived, huh? He wasn't always as
Oh my
happy.
gosh. No, but there was something in him that had to be expressed.
Right. Well, I think that um comports with that goes with the theory of two things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, he could give beautiful things to the world, and but at the same time, he lived in a very dark place at
Yes.
moments, very dark,
Yes. Yes.
and tried to grapple with that. And that is how he did it, and he could find that generous spirit in himself
Hmm.
to share
Hmm.
what beauty he could see around him.
Yeah.
with other people, even though he felt in the depths of despair at times,
Yeah.
you know?
So maybe that's an element of happiness or well-being, whatever we're calling it, is to be able to hold two things at the same time.
Right.
The goodness
That's
and the badness, the
well,
difficulty.
yeah, it's not an either or.
And
It because I think, one of the things that contributes to unhappiness is self-criticism and judgment. And so when we can shed that and give ourselves some grace and say, it's okay that I'm in a crummy mood today, or it's okay that, whatever,
yeah,
uh, that I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Like I didn't exercise today, actually, I gotta say, but I like to do that every day. But to not judge myself for that and to say, you know what, it's okay. It's all right. I did other things today. Um, and that's a hard thing for us to do for ourselves, to be as generous with ourselves as we would be with others.
I think you have hit the proverbial nail on the head because there are very few people I know that are not hard on themselves or are learning, maybe unlearning how to not be hard on ourselves. It's
Yeah,
so ingrained in our society, our professional careers, everything is push, 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 and not tolerating mistakes, not tolerating simple things that if we just said, oh, okay, and went on to the next thing, we'd be fine.
right, right. That's right.
I'm sure you've seen that a lot over the years in your career.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. I think I think yeah, everybody who's living has probably seen it. But yeah, you see it a lot. Even though and well, I think at the executive level, when people are running big organizations and dealing with a lot of money and payroll and hundreds of employees, you carry a different weight on your shoulders.
Yes.
You're not only responsible then for your own happiness, you have to know that whatever you say or how you treat someone
Mm.
or how you say hello to them in the morning or don't say hello or whatever, it impacts that person who is working with you, but it also ripples on to their family. And you never know who they have at home. You don't know. You don't know what child might then be impacted by the fact that you chose to ignore a certain employee or you chose to chew them out for something that they, maybe could have done better or
Mm.
whatever. Um, I always like to think that with people that worked with me that they were their own worst critics. I didn't have to, I mean, these people who,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of grew up in the era of the corporate world when it was okay to yell at people.
All
And
right.
that always used to like startle me when somebody would, what? You're yelling? And I don't know. I mean, I taught a college course once where I asked people, and it was a communications course even for executives. We talked about, and these were fairly young students, and it wasn't that long ago. And I said, how many of you think it's okay to yell in the workplace? And like, I think 2/3 of the class raised their hand and said, yeah, it's okay.
Really?
Yeah. Like, no, have you been yelled at in the workplace? And yes, they had. Yes, they had. And I think that that comes back down, though, to how we live our lives
Mm.
and where do they get that from? Where does that mindset happen? Does it happen because they see it so much on social media? They see it on television shows. They
Mm.
see it on the news that there's name calling or whatever or yelling, or do they experience it in their own home?
Mm.
And the safest place for us to be emotionally, is where we live. So to try and create as peaceful a place as we possibly can in our own home is where I think happiness starts.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, that's for sure.
Yeah, you can, you know, and there are many in this world who cannot.
Yeah.
And so their own home is, in that case, not the physical location they're at, but them in their own head. And they're, you know, it's a very challenging thing to do.
Mm, wow. That floors me to think that that many people think it's okay to behave like that in the
Not,
workplace.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And this was a gradual level course that, yeah,
Wow.
wow.
Well, I'm just glad, well, not just, but I'm very glad there is such a thing now as conscious leadership where people are questioning that, not just how they are operating in, the leaders in an organization are becoming more self-aware and recognizing the consequences of their actions because to be that to have that many people think it's fine to be yelled at in the workplace, that is very revealing, don't you think, about
Hmm.
what they've grown up with and what they think is a good, there's no distinction between the carrot and the stick in this case,
Yeah,
because it's,
yeah.
yeah.
That or it just doesn't, yelling doesn't mean anything. The volume of one's voice doesn't really mean anything to some people. They're kind of immune. You know, they have the height of a rhinoceros, so they don't care. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
You know, but it's a culture thing, I think, of the workplace. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, there is a heightened awareness of leaders and the need for good, sound, balanced leadership. But I think there is also a very large, I can tell you from having worked with many companies, that it's, you know, that losing one's temper and using that as a tool to motivate people by really by scaring them, I think,
Yeah.
or threatening them it's alive and well. It is. But that, I think, just all comes back to, well, where's the happiness going to come from? It's not going to come from your job. It's not going to come from a boss who might have their own issues that are coming out in rage, it or thoughtlessness. It's not coming from there. It has to come from you, because if not you, then who? Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who can determine your worth. And that's, you know, that's where the happiness has to be, the flame has to be burning.
I'm so glad you said that. It's the perfect ending to a very lovely conversation.
Yes. Yeah, it was wonderful. Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Well, thank you. And for anyone who is watching or listening, we thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So, bye for now.